Countdown proceeding satisfactorily. We've just passed the 30-second mark in the countdown. Control center indicate we are go.
You're going to space.
Are you going to space?
I'm going to space. Yeah.
Countdown proceeding satisfactorily. We've completed our preliminary reports here in the control center. The propellants are stable.
Space for humanity, we're here! Like, it really, really touches you. It's not something that you just look at. Like, it's there. We're right here.
Roger, and your LOS time at Canary is 2337. Over.
To actually go to space and look at our amazing planet from that high and to just breathe that in is just super amazing.
Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds.
More than 60 years after he was selected, but ultimately passed over to become this country's first black astronaut, 90-year-old Ed Dwight
will finally get his due.
The trip was sponsored by Space for Humanity.
When Amanda Wynn decided to take up the fight for the rights of sexual assault victims and survivors, she had to shelve her longtime dream of becoming an astronaut. Now, after successfully passing federal legislation, convincing the United Nations to adopt a historic landmark resolution, and receiving a Nobel Peace Prize nomination, thanks to Space for Humanity, her astronaut dreams are becoming a reality.
To prepare it for liftoff.
Roger, go ahead. Ready to copy. Okay,
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
0. All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Antonio Paranace. I'm the Executive Director of Space for Humanity. Thank you all for joining tonight and being here. And also thank you to the many who are watching the live stream right now. We are live streaming these opening remarks. We are going to pause during the screening, but then we are going to do a live stream of the panel and discussion afterwards. As you saw, Space for Humanity is a nonprofit organization. We're globally recognized, and we're committed to the democratization of space. That's why we're so excited to be here tonight and to coordinate here with the filmmakers to present to you this very powerful and impactful film. It's a documentary that you're going to see very shortly, but it's about innovation. It's about the leading edge of technology, of making science fiction, science reality. And we're so fortunate to be living in the era that we're in. I, of course, implore you to visit spaceforhumanity.org. You saw some of the stories that were on screen. We run a citizen astronaut program. So that's right, someone sitting here, someone watching from home could be our next citizen astronaut. Just today, we announced someone part of our Space for Humanity family, Emily Calandrelli, announced that she's going up on a Blue Origin flight. And I hope some of you know who Emily is. She goes by the Space Gal. She's an incredibly powerful science communicator, inspiring countless around the world. We're so excited to see her space dream come true. She's going to be a space ambassador for us, which is really exciting when she goes up. Of course, we also have the ability to send folks who aren't world-renowned, best-selling authors and science communicators as well. We pride ourselves in sending individuals from every walk of life. So you saw a bit of a video, and you'll learn more during the film, of course, of Katya. She was our first citizen astronaut. She was also the first Mexican-born woman to go to space. You saw Sarah. She was our second citizen astronaut. She was the first Egyptian to go to space, the first Arab woman to go to space, the first woman from the African continent to go to space. You also saw footage of Keisha. We helped support sending her and her daughter, first mother-daughter duo and first astronauts from Antigua. And the list goes on and on. Just a month and a half ago, I had the wonderful pleasure of being in Texas to see the launch of Ed Dwight. If you've not seen or heard of Ed Dwight's story, I implore you to look into it. Ed Dwight is an incredible figure, and I know you got a taste of it there. There's a documentary out, another documentary, so I'm giving you a laundry list of documentaries to watch, called The Space Race, so you should check out. But just a quick primer, Ed Dwight was the first black astronaut candidate named by President Kennedy in the 60s. He was a decorated Air Force captain. perfectly qualified to go, and he faced quite a bit of racism. There was many who thought in charge that the country wasn't ready. So when President Kennedy was assassinated, he showed up to duty the next morning and was transferred to Germany. So I think he got a hint that they didn't want him to go to space. He, of course, went on, got another degree, became a very successful sculptor. But about 6 weeks ago, at 90 years young, with our support, he became the oldest individual to go to space, and we made his space dream come true. So, yeah, thank you. So truly, if you want to hear more about these stories and other stories, how you can get involved, how you might be able to go to space, go to spaceforhumanity.org. But without further ado, because I want to get the speaking program going, I'm really eager to introduce to you our next speaker here. It's my pleasure. I've gotten to know Mark over the past several months, and he's an incredible story. If you have the opportunity to talk to him later, don't let him out of your sight until you hear his full background and story. But as a primer, he is a retired Air Force Space Operations Officer, and he is a current Chief of Staff for Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska. Please welcome Mark Drilling.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start by congratulating Director Torsten Hoffman on Fortitude, his thought-provoking documentary that we will be watching this evening. In addition, I want to thank the team at Space for Humanity for allowing me the honor to say a few words, and I need to recognize Mr. Dylan Taylor, the executive producer of this documentary and the founder of both Space for Humanity and Voyager Space, for his pioneering work in this industry. Oh, there he is. Roughly 2 weeks ago, America celebrated its Independence Day. I still remember my anticipation as a child for this holiday, as it marked one of the few times a year my parents let me stay out past dark. I still recall those 4ths when I lived in upstate New York, when the sky was clear in the evening, and I would gaze upon the stars after the smoke dissipated. I would gaze heavenward, I would imagine the limitless possibilities not just for my future, but for all mankind. We are now living in exciting times in which space literally touches every aspect of our daily lives. As part of my space operator certification 18 years ago, I was required to be conversant about how space is a center of economic gravity. When we talk about that idea, it's amazing just to think how far we've come in 1 century. Just think about it. Over 100 years ago, moving across the ocean waters often meant for many people leaving everyone behind. But now as we traverse the ocean of space, we find our world is more interconnected than ever before. However, this new ocean, this ocean of progress, also means it is a new ocean of challenges. We currently find ourselves very much in a second space race. Like the first, society continues to be tested by issues that will define us well into the future. The first space race challenged our national prestige as we sought to live up to President Kennedy's dream. The entire world watched as we reached for the stars and put our footprints on our moon. While we can draw similarities between then and now, the stakes now are that much higher. My grandparents and parents, like the people the world over, were enthralled with the great accomplishments of the Apollo era, but space was yet to be integrated into their daily lives. Unlike today, in which banking, transportation, farming, defense, and countless other industries all depend on space. From finding the best driving directions to ensuring our economy and our society continue to function, space has become an inseparable part of who we are. I was one of the 3 missile warning crew commanders on duty in 2007 when the Chinese carried out their ASAT test against a defunct weather satellite. That seminal day in our history marked a turning point. Some would even say an escalation. Against this backdrop, we have also witnessed an unprecedented ignition of the commercial space industry, exponential growth in the orbital domain, new discoveries, increased access for folks who were once marginalized, and the ability for multiple nations to find a place in space. The 4th of July also makes me think of the American dream. It has always been rooted in the idea of striving to better ourselves. We have steadily fought and sacrificed so a greater number of people could have access to that dream, building a land where respect for the integrity of the individual and a land where hope is always paramount. As we continue to make progress and venture into space, I can't think of a better set of principles and ideals to serve as our North Star. Our current challenges and how we face up to them will speak to future generations, and serve as a reminder of what kind of people we are, it will in fact define our legacy. Fortunately, we have leaders like the team at Space for Humanity who endeavor each day to remind us of those principles, while reinforcing a future where we all belong. They're inspiring the next generation of leaders to look beyond the horizon, to dream of new heights, and to be the best versions of themselves, as we saw in the video a moment ago. The important film you're going to see tonight touches upon something that particularly stuck out to me. It asks, what about the people in our society who are part of that roughly 20% of the population who have some sort of debilitating condition? When a child living with a disability looks upward to the stars, do they see that same limitless future, or do they see another barrier? Do they see a future in the stars where they might not be a part of it? Do they see the American dream, or do they see a future where that is limited, where it's something that they might not be able to pursue? I would say this, because of the work of the people in this industry, we know what that answer will be. These leaders, each day, they break barriers and set new records. They are undeterred. They make the impossible possible, not just for themselves, but for countless others. Imagine a day when a child living with a disability, maybe they're undergoing chemo, maybe they're waiting for a transplant, they could be dealing with any number of conditions. They're sitting in a chair and they're watching an adult who's just like them, journeying to the stars. There's no higher barrier to breach than space. We're getting closer and closer to making that possibility something for all. Where could a child like that end up one day? Where could they be in 20 years? Where will society be in 20 years? Those answers are starting to come into focus. What you will see in this film are how the people who are helping to launch us off into the stars have that power to truly change this world. I want to thank you again. I want to congratulate the director and the producer on this very important film. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing to change the world.
Thank you, Mark. And now on to our next speaker. Our next speaker worked on Capitol Hill, was an attorney. He was counsel on Capitol Hill. But then he just, I guess, was a glutton for punishment and decided to run for office. So I'm very pleased to introduce someone who is a space enthusiast, a huge enthusiast for STEM education as well, and representing Maryland's 4th District that also includes Goddard Space Flight Center. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Congressman Glenn Ivey.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me a chance to come join you tonight. I had a chance to meet with a team that talked about the film, and I've had a chance to take a peek at some of it, and I wanted to definitely be supportive of this effort. As you just heard, my district is the eastern border of Washington, D.C. Prince George's County, the inner half of it, runs all the way up and contains NASA Goddard in the district. And I had a chance to go out there and visit. We're supporting the facility as we go through the appropriations process, and the fight for money can be like a knife fight in a phone booth sometimes, but we're going to make sure we get more green than red when we come out of there. What's interesting to me about this program is the fact that it brings space to people. It brings possibilities to people who hadn't really considered them before. Last week, I brought out a group to the Capitol, and they were a group of graduating seniors who were going off to college, most of them for the first time. They were first-time college graduates or college attendees and their families. And I talked to one of them, I said, well, what do you think about the Capitol? And he said, well, this is my first time here. And I said, well, you live just a few miles from here. And he said, yeah, that's right, but I didn't really think that this was a place for people like me. The only reason I came was because you invited me to come. And I thought about that for a moment, and here's a kid, he's been successful in high school, he's going off to college, lives just a few miles away from the Capitol, and in my view, the greatest country in the world, a country of opportunity and possibility, and he thinks that there's places like the seat of our government that he's not supposed to go to. We need to change that kind of thinking. And I'm not blaming him for it. I think it's part of what we need to do as a country to make sure everybody feels included, everybody understands that they have these opportunities and that they're available for them. When I was a kid, I was just talking to them earlier today, and I remember watching the space program. I was born after President Kennedy was assassinated, or I don't remember when he was assassinated. I was born too early to remember. I remember the King and the Bobby Kennedy assassinations. But in the middle of all that turmoil was the landing on the moon. And for me, it was just a pivotal moment. And it brought the country together in a way that doesn't happen in the United States very much these days. I remember we were in school for some of the flights. In those days, they'd stop school. They'd wheel in the TV. They were black and white back then. And yes, I'm showing my age, but that's okay. I'm glad to still be here. And, you know, we'd stop whatever we were studying and watch whatever was going on with the moon landing. NASA, space, the possibility of it. Star Trek was on TV, and it was revolutionary at the time. But it was this set of possibilities that was incredible. And now there's a new frontier, not only with space, but with AI and all the technology that we've invented and discovered and the possibilities that come with it. We've got to make sure that all of those possibilities get not just to the MIT graduates, not just to the superstars that come out of this college or that university or India or China or, you know, Stanford or Harvard, but to places like Prince George's County where kids live on the street and don't realize that they can be part of this too. So I want to thank this program for reaching out and making sure that everyday people come to realize that they too can reach the stars. And I want to thank the people who put this film together and this project together to making sure that that reality, that possibility gets to everywhere. Because we have a huge population in our country that don't realize that there are Einsteins among them. We just have to find them. So thanks for the film, thanks for the work, thanks for you all coming out. Keep up the great work, and let's enjoy. See you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. The Congressman touches on a couple of points that speak right to the heart of Space for Humanity, what we stand for. I know what the filmmaker stands for, what Dylan stands for still when he decided to put this project together, which is one, that space brings us together. It requires a global effort, a species-wide effort. It's not easy. And also, from a political standpoint, I worked for almost a decade in Congress. I can tell you, nothing brings folks from different sides of the aisle together like space. There is a foothold for anyone, an entry point to get you involved. So space has this unique power that I think we should lean into. The other thing that's important that the Congressman touched upon is access to space and access for everyone. It was a touching story, Congressman, the idea that, you know, the seat of power, that folks feel that they don't have the right or the permission to be there, but we feel that same way about space. It's why we run our Citizen Astronaut program. It's why we're so proud of not just sending individuals up, but then bringing them back, activating them to make an impact, and then elevating dreams of individuals who didn't know that they might have a future in space. And look, you don't have to go to space. I've talked to some folks where space isn't for everyone, but you can still, you know, get involved. I think in this next 20 years is probably the most exciting time for space, more so even than the Apollo era. And this is the space generation. We're going to see every job being activated for space, and it's exciting. It brings people together, and we're going to make sure that it's not just a playground for folks who have that access. We're going to make it accessible to all. So with that, I do want to introduce our last speaker before the film. Torsten Hoffman is the director of the film. He's a filmmaker. You're going to see him and get to know him quite well over the next 90 minutes. But I want to introduce Torsten and give you just a very quick primer on what you're about to see.
Thank you. This is so exciting. This is so exciting. Thank you. What you're about to see, what you are about to see is the work about 3 years, 90 interviews, and lots of research. And Washington is a serious place. These people have serious messages, but I just want to set the stage here to relax. Okay, everyone, we can sit back and kind of enjoy. All right, if one joke doesn't land for you, it's okay. If one of the stories isn't for you, I promise you everyone here in this room will get something out of this film. Even the absolute space insiders, we have some real pros here, and some who don't know much about the space industry, you'll all get something out of it, I promise it. I promise to land that ship safely at the end with our grand end. So just quickly, 3 parts of the film. The space economy, in my view, 3 parts. Number one, everything that goes up, the astronauts, the rockets. Number two, everything that comes down, the satellites sending the data. And number three, the most sci-fi part, the space-to-space economy. That's just about to start. Very, very interesting sci-fi things happening. So with that, I'm not going to talk anymore. Just enjoy the film. And I think, Antonio, we can play now. Yeah, right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Torsten. And without further ado, we are going to go right into the film. I realize, though, I do have one quick video I want to show you. It's another friend of the organization who wanted to be here, but unfortunately she was tied up at work, so she filmed something quickly, and we'll play that and go right into the screening, please.
Thanks, Antonio, and thanks to Space for Humanity for putting on the event tonight. I hope that you all enjoy the show.
It is such an honor for me to be able to speak with you today about this incredible experience. I can genuinely and truly tell you that this experience changed my life. It changed my outlook on life. It changed my perspective completely. Being able to see the planet from the outside is truly the most beautiful experience I've ever lived in my entire life. And I'm convinced that I will remember that moment for the rest of my life. Since then, I've been working on creating space-related opportunities for Mexico, Latin America, and eventually the rest of the world. Because now I understand how truly important it is for us to be able to live up to our promise and democratize space. Welcome to this incredible experience. I hope you're all enjoying DC, and I hope to meet you all very soon.
So now we're going to just introduce some of our panelists as they become ready. Is anyone, Torsten, are you ready? Yeah, so first on the stage, please welcome Torsten. You got to see him earlier. Torsten coming out here, Torsten Hoffman. Apparently he's not ready. I think he was emotionally ready, so I'm going to fill for time now. So I think what the film does that's really important is it starts telling stories, and you understand the impact of those stories. I mean, I'm biased, but clearly some of the stories I liked the most were those of our Space for Humanity citizen astronauts and so forth. And I think it's important that the themes that we heard over and over again about how, again, it's about increasing access, bringing people together, and elevating dreams. So I think that's what this night's about. It's what this film is about. It's what I know we're, as an organization, what we're about, and what I hope you take away from this experience. Torsten, you ready? Yes. Come on out, Torsten. I'll get you a water bottle.
Thank you.
No, don't worry, I'll get you one, don't worry. So this is Torsten Hoffman. Do you want to say a few words, Torsten? Is your mic working? All right, is it working? Check, check, check.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much. Really means a lot to me. I just want to point out a few people from the crew because
Please,
we have a few here. This was such a complex production over 3 years. I mentioned it before. I brought in a guy I worked with for 10 years now, Michael. He did the editing and the storytelling. Michael, please stand up. He came all the way from a long road trip. We also have another producer here, René Puls. He represents the Swiss ecosystem. We're doing a Swiss premiere. So we're basically releasing the film today on Apple TV and Amazon everywhere except in Switzerland because this guy wants to have a big event in Zurich, so I'm looking forward to that. And then finally, one more producer, Thibaut. He's coming from Dubai because it's very hot there in the summer. So to cool down, he came all the way. Thank you. And yeah, sorry.
No, that's why. You know what? To keep that momentum going, I also want to just say thanks, one, to the Library of Congress and their staff for helping us put this on. I also want to thank some Space for Humanity staff. There's Aisha. Aisha, if you want to just give a wave. She was in the film. You saw her speaking to Katya. And then you got Ben. Ben's running around somewhere up there. Aisha's the head of our programs. Ben is head of our creative. He does all our social, and he's running the live stream right now. I also want to give a special thanks to the chairman of our board of directors, Ryan Kreiser. Ryan's there. If you want to give a wave, stand up. And right next to Ryan is Amresh. He's also on our board of directors as well. They're just incredible contributors of their time and their expertise to this. I also want to give a special thanks, while I have a moment, to the sponsors who made tonight possible as well. That includes Interstellar Lab, that includes Voyager Space, that includes Firefly Aerospace, all groups and organizations that you saw represented in the film. It also includes Carmen Line. We've got Sean and Jim. There's Sean right there and Jim there from Carmen Line. And also, I want to give a special shout out to the Space Force Historical Foundation. They played a great role in this too. And lastly, just because I see him, Ben, who you just saw in one of the later segments of the film, is here from LifeShip. So thank you all for joining us and being here and supporting tonight's event. Come on up. And now I'm going to just introduce our panelists. First, we have Dylan Taylor, who you saw in the film. Dylan, yeah, please go for it. Dylan is the founder of Space for Humanity, but also the founder and CEO of Voyager Space, and he is also the executive producer of the film you just saw. We also have Barbara Belvisi, who you just saw as well. She is the founder and CEO of Interstellar Lab. And then lastly, we have Michael Lopez Algeria. We say Michael L.A. when we know him. But Michael is a decorated Navy test pilot. He's also a decorated NASA astronaut, and he is currently with Axiom Space, where he has a really cool title. What is it, Chief Astronaut at Axiom Space. So welcome our panelists. Yeah. All right, is this on? Working? All right, cool. So to get us started, you know what, Dylan, I know we're running over, we're going to try and be efficient here, but I want to kick it to you.
Sure.
What was the genesis of this film? What made you want to create this?
The origin story. So what was it, Torsten? 4 years ago, I think it was. We were at the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos. We were at literally a bar at some social event. And as you do, you meet people and make acquaintances and network a bit. And I met Torsten. He was promoting his film at the time, actually. And he asked me what I was up to. And I said, well, I'm in the space industry. And he's like, well, tell me more about that, because I've always been interested in that. And so we really just struck up a dialogue. And of course, after a couple of glasses of wine, we had this great idea. We're going to make a movie together, which I thought, okay, well, that's great. I wonder if I'll ever, hear from Torsten again. And to his credit, I think it was probably 2 months later, he dropped me an email and said, hey, let's talk more about this. And at that time, I had a media company, Multiverse Media. We had just made a film on Jerry O'Neill called The High Frontier. And, it's one of those things like remodeling your house. It's like when you're in the throes of it, it's so painful, you tell yourself you're never going to do it again. But that had started to fade off, and I said, well, let's do another project. And Torsten, as you saw with the film that we just watched, is an amazing filmmaker. And one of my passions is trying to expand space community and get people outside the space community excited about what the potential is. And I thought Torsten would be the perfect filmmaker to do that, so I was very happy to back him. So that's my memory of it. Torsten might remember it differently, but that's how it started.
That's about right. So I was in the midst of promoting my last film, Cryptopia, was about blockchain, and really not thinking about the next topic. And that conversation started it all. I read Space Barons and then 15 other books and hundreds of hours of podcasts, obviously, and you opened 20, 25 different doors to cool stories and cool companies. Crystal, who's also in the room, by the way, another very key part. She's in the film, but she also, behind the scenes, introduced me to many people. And I mean, space is sexy. Look at this. I mean, we have 200 people here, I think, by some counts. So it's a popular topic. So of course, I was eager to jump in it. Yeah.
Awesome. And to dive into some of the themes we saw in the film, and Torsten, really great job telling that story, giving us a snapshot of the landscape, how space has evolved and where we are now. My question is, where are we going? What is the exciting thing that's happened in transforming the space landscape recently and where we are now? And tell me, what are the next couple of decades going to look like for humans in space? So I don't know who wants to field that first. Barbara?
I defer to Barbara.
How are we going to survive in space, Barbara?
I'm trying to take care of food. Okay. Axiom is going to take over the space station. Then there's going to be more private space stations. So we're going to send more humans into space. And, with some big rockets coming in, and Torsten is touching that with SpaceX and the work they're doing with Starship, the cost of getting to price will dramatically decrease, and we'll be able to send more and more people. So the first step, I will say, will be 2030. We'll see a transformational change into low Earth orbit, and then you have the lunar program. And so we're going to send humans back to the moon, and not only humans, probably life. And the way I want to see the future is that for humans to go there, but also for us to carry life from planet Earth, so we can help life expand in low Earth orbit, on the moon, and then future in Mars.
That's beautiful, and I know we walked by, I think, the box. Yeah, I don't know if everyone got the spiel, but if you walked by the box on the way in with the rose, do you want to give folks just 30 seconds on what they walked by on the way in?
Sure. So we work on Earth, on low Earth orbit, and also we have a lunar program. So we recently announced 2 months ago a mission called Mission Little Prince, which is backed by the foundation of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry and inspired by the book Little Prince. The mission is to grow roses on the moon. So we have a partnership with a company called Astrolab. The rover will be carried by Starship and install the little box with roses on the moon. It's a mission to inspire. The Little Prince is the most translated and read book on the planet after the Bible. So we're trying to make a connection with as many humans as we can on Earth so they can relate with the lunar program. So anytime you will look at the moon, you will imagine a little prince and the rose growing.
That's beautiful. So, and it's an incredible example of like the leading edge of where we are and going into space. So my question I think for you, Michael, for you, Dylan, are, how important on the collaboration front? How important are public and private partnerships? Also, how important are global collaborations in space right now and moving forward?
Huge on both of them. I think public-private partnerships, PPP, people used to say that means public pays permanently. I think we're getting away from that now, and there's a real symbiosis between the two. And you start looking at NASA in the early 2000s with the commercial cargo program, followed by the commercial crew program, and now by the commercial LEO destination program. So I think these things are here to stay. I think the era of sort of the government dictating all of the requirements, making all the decisions, deciding, what metal the fastener should be made of, I think those days are gone, at least in civil space. I'm not sure yet about defense space. But they will give way to this sort of cost firm fixed price contracting, which is how all this stuff started. And that commercial companies have to have skin in the game. The government has skin in the game, and I think that's the future. And on the international side, I mean, Axiom is knee deep in that. We've flown 8 countries on our 3 missions, and if someone were to ask me, I would guess that you'll see maybe 3 more on the next mission. And so we think that's very important to expand the access beyond the 15 nations that have access to the ISS today and make this truly a global enterprise. Dylan, I thought your comments about the sort of bifurcation of commercial space in the future is very accurate, and I think it's kind of a race for, let's say, the West to try to get as many of the 200, however many countries there are, to be on our side of that ledger.
I agree totally. Yeah, and back to PPP, I mean, to echo what Mike said, I think it's a classic win-win-win-win. I mean, every participant is better off, I think. The companies are certainly better off. Innovation's better off. I think governments are better off. Outcomes are better off. So I think it's a classic model that when done right and when all the participants are coming to the table and communicating well, it can have a huge impact. And then on the international nature, I mean, you know this, Antonio, with the whole origin story of Space for Humanity. I believe space is a tool for transformation, and I think it's one of the ways we can reimagine what humanity can be. And one of the dreams that Mike and I and Axiom and Voyager share is, imagine you have a free-flying space station and you have a UN Security Council meeting up there or a G20 meeting up there. I think you would get a different outcome. I think it does shift perspectives, and I think that's the potential for space.
Yeah, Dylan, I think you're spot on, and to build on that point, to talk about shifting perspectives and that transformational power of space, Can you also talk about, for the two of you who've been to space, talk to us a little bit about the overview effect. You heard about the overview effect during the documentary. Frank White coined the term. It is that cognitive shift of seeing Earth from space. What did you both feel in your different experiences going to space and looking back on our home?
You want to start, Mike?
Sure. Let me say, when I went to space for the first time, it was a little bit of a different era where there was a little bit less access to imagery online and that sort of thing. But nonetheless, as you can imagine, as a NASA astronaut, I got a lot of training on Earth photography. Therefore, you see a lot of pictures. You have colleagues that have been there. Everybody tells you what it's going to be like, and nothing prepares you for the moment that you actually see your planet for the very first time with your own eyes. And I will tell you that I think that sensation over the 6 times I've been to space has increased with each one. I think whatever Dylan said in the film, you come back a better person. I firmly believe that to be true. And I think that you come back an even better person each time. I think the experience just sort of adds to itself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, to me, it's almost, I've described it as having a new emotion that's, one part this sense of awe that is really profound, something that is overpowering in terms of how dynamic and wonderful the Earth is. And then one part terror, because you realize how much of a precipice we're on and how thinly veiled the Earth is from cold, hostile, dark, dead space. And then a little bit of anger, because you feel like you've had this truth exposed and that you've been whispered the secret, and you're looking down on the Earth. It's like, why isn't it obvious to everyone the way things actually are? And so imagine all 3 of those emotions kind of fused together, multiply it by 1 billion, and then plant it so deep inside of you that you can't unfeel it and you can't unremember it. And that's a bit what it's like. And it doesn't lend itself to words. I think that's why people have a hard time talking about it, because it very much is I was interviewed by Frank White, Antonio, believe it or not, the day I got back, the day of the launch. I don't remember a word I said because I had brain fog, but I listened to it. And one of the questions he asked me is, what one word describes your space flight? And the only thing that came to mind, and it came to mind immediately, was transcendent. And to me, transcendent is this notion of something deeper than the mind. It's more of a spiritual thing. And I know that sounds, a bit New Age-ish, but that's truly what it's like. It's transformational experience, no doubt.
Well, that's incredible, and I think it also it makes sense for me that everyone I've spoken to who's taken a journey to space and back, the first thing they say to me is, everyone should go. Everyone should experience it. And I think it's what we're trying to accomplish, change these global perspectives. And Torsten, to your credit, I think this film does a part of that. It tells really interesting, candid conversations about where we are right now, and I think it sheds light to that. What was that journey like? And it's something I actually want to hear from all of you about, the storytelling journey, right? Like, it's not just about going to space. It's like the stories and the impacts. How do you all integrate storytelling or have integrated storytelling into being effective communicators of what you do?
Big question. I'm just going to give you a couple bullets. Going back to 2020, nobody grows up as a kid wanting to be a crypto billionaire, right? But a lot of kids want to be astronauts. So this industry has something special, and we all in this room know this. So this is my number one. My number two about storytelling is a very tactical note. In my 90 interviews, 80 or 90 interviews, what I've come to realize is that some companies are just brilliant at telling these stories. They have, it doesn't necessarily need to be a CEO or founder, that's best, but also a good engineer, or someone who's good on camera, right? But this sense of storytelling or this presence on camera is irresistible as a filmmaker to not take. So sometimes, maybe it was a little bit long, a scene, but they're just so magnetic, right? And some interviewees are the opposite, right? I'm sitting an hour with them and I cannot use a single thing. So it's just a filmmaker kind of story. And funnily, American companies are typically quite good at this skill. Yeah.
Right, Dylan.
Yeah, I think you have to have passion for the subject. I think the best storytellers really are emotionally involved in the story that they're telling. And I think that, when people are passionate about something and when they're, when they have this deep fuel inside of them that's burning to spread the word, then I think that's what translates onto camera. I think many of you know Mark Andreessen, the venture capitalist. I heard him speak one time, and he said all founders have two things in common. One is they're incredibly passionate, and they think what they're working on is the most important thing to work on planet Earth. And the second is they're so passionate about it that they're able to tell that story and get people excited about it. And I think that's true of any kind of storytelling. I think you need those two things, and then it just naturally happens.
Great. Barbara?
Well, I'm very passionate about what I'm doing, and I think this is the most important thing in the world.
That's why you're a successful founder. Exactly.
Well, okay. I grew up on, it's a controversial one, but I grew up on Disney when I was a kid. And so we're three sisters, and Disney, well, we grew up on Disney books and a lot of information about space exploration. So we had a lot of imagination. But what I liked about Disney when I was a kid was it was an escape. Again, it's controversial now growing up. But I think what I'm trying to do with the company, and it's also related to the fact that what we're doing, it's a child dream as well. So that's, you can read through that in the company. But I'm trying to touch the kid inside all the humans. Because we all have this instinct to be attracted by the stars. My answer to that will be very simple, because we come from the stars. So that's why we're attracted by it. But I'm trying to trigger this inside every human. So this is where, yeah.
Wonderful. And Mike?
So what I learned about storytelling is that I suck at it. And, and part of that...
Not true, Mike.
Part of it is because as a NASA astronaut, you really have two audiences when you come back from space. One is children, and the other one is Congress, which arguably... In the first group, you can tell them, as long as you tell them how you go to the bathroom in space, they're happy. The second group, doesn't matter what you tell them, because unless you're bringing jobs to their district, they're unhappy. So for a long time, I just sort of treaded water. And then I had an experience, Anusha Ansari, who was featured in the film, and I flew together, and she was doing this brand new thing called blogging from space. This is in 2006. And it dawned on me that she was telling stories to people on the ground who otherwise would not care about what's going on in space. And people were paying attention and soaking it up. And the first seeds of the idea of democratizing the experience were planted in me. And then when I came into the private sector at Axiom, now it turns out that the stories you tell and how well you tell them matter, because you're either trying to get somebody to invest in your company or to buy a seat on one of your missions. And both of those are pretty heavy lifts. And so I think all this points to, in the future, we really need to think about flying journalists and artists and people who can convey the human emotion much, much, much better than engineers and pilots can, which is unfortunately where we're stuck right now, for the most part. Thanks to Space to Humanity, by the way, that's changing already. So I think we're taking steps in the right direction. And the more that we can democratize the experience, the better.
Well, thank you for saying that, Mike. And you mentioning this newfangled blogging years ago. It's incredible because right before the screening, we saw a short video of a NASA astronaut filmed today on the ISS speaking to us. And that was, I should also give a shout out, that's NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps. Jeanette is awesome. Carmen Line, who's here again, helped facilitate that. And Jeanette is just a wonderful figure. She's up there for her first trip. It's a 6-month stint, and then she'll be back here within 2 months. So we can't wait to have her here in person for an in-person event. That said, though, I obsess over and I think about the Apollo era, right? The energy, the excitement that surrounded the Apollo era. So something else, as we start to bring this panel discussion to a close, that I want to hear from you is, What is happening now that folks in this room, the folks listening or watching live on the live stream may not be aware of? What is it that maybe personally excites you? Maybe Torsten, it's something you learned on your journey of having these conversations. What is it that left you with hope and excitement? What could we build upon to build that Apollo era zeal back in this country and beyond?
Well, there's this one scene in the Space for Humanity chapter where I talk about Katja has now a Barbie, like she's in the zeitgeist in Mexico, like Neil Armstrong was in America in the 1970s. And I think you guys at Space for Humanity do such a good job at like finding these characters that can become iconic in their cultures. So that would be my first.
Yeah, there's a lot that comes to mind, Antonio. One that I'm excited to see is, we're going back to the moon, and that's going to happen this decade, I'm confident. And we're going to go back to stay, and we're going to start building infrastructure on the moon. So I just envision a day you're on your porch, it's a summer evening, you're looking at the moon, and there are lights on the moon. And there's lights on the moon because there are humans living there. And to me, that would just be a really amazing sort of cognitive shift and a reminder. Of course, we've had humans in space on the ISS for 20 plus years, but we don't necessarily see that with the naked eye. So I'm looking forward to that day.
Barbara, what are you looking forward to?
Same.
Plus the rose.
Yes.
And the rose.
Plus the rose and plants and other form of life. I think it's a lot of my friends are not coming from there. They have no link with the space industry. They have no clue. They have no clue. And every time I'm coming back and I'm telling them stories, and I went to this rocket launch and I've seen this company and this is what they're working on. So spreading the word and getting the excitement. Maybe we need people like you, but people don't know.
Great. Mike?
Yeah, for me, I mean, you mentioned the Apollo excitement, and I think you're seeing a renaissance of that in a different way. In the Apollo era, it was all about people seeing, their heroes do something that was it was almost fiction, but it was never something within their reach. It was, like the congressman said earlier, it was something that was not for them. But I think thanks to Space for Humanity and other efforts to make this more, if not democratized, normalized, more and more people can start to really get plugged into this notion. And I think that the advent of social media and influencers and all that, all of that adds up, and it starts to grow pretty spectacularly. And Torsten, I just want to take a second to say, I thought the film was fantastic. I learned so much. I've been in the business for a long time.
Tell a friend, tell a friend.
So with products like that and people, posting on Instagram because they went to space this morning, I mean, that's just going to, it'll be a snowball of a different shape and color maybe than the Apollo era, but I think it'll be very valid. Well,
to draw the panel discussion to a close, I guess my question is, the question about getting plugged in. How can folks get plugged in? The obvious question, Torsten, for you is where can folks go to watch this documentary who weren't here tonight? But also then what's the action after that? What is the call to action? If somebody wants to get involved in the space industry, in the new space renaissance, as Mike just said, from all of you, I'd love to hear what do they do right now as soon as they log off of this live stream?
So I'll start. Mine is relatively easy. So thank you for watching it here. But obviously, it's now on Apple TV. It's soon going to be on Amazon. Maybe it's already on Amazon now. And it would be really great if you could share and spread the word. And because ultimately, that's what it's about, to kind of reach more than just this room of already space enthusiasts, right? And the other thing maybe that I will say is I'm really looking forward to doing more of these events like this today, maybe in a different state, Florida, or country, Switzerland, or wherever, I don't know, your university or whatever. So maybe let's talk about that another time.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to echo what Torsten said. Here's a specific call to action. Tell 10 people about the film. And intentionally tell 10 people who are outside the space industry. You know, one of the ambitions with the film was to expand space interests. People who were adjacently interested in technology or maybe the future or maybe the potential for humanity to evolve into a more enlightened state, find those people and tell them about the film so that we can get more people into this community and more people helping us achieve these, you know, really audacious goals that we have for the industry. And then hold some screenings at your home, you know, break out the popcorn, invite people over, download the movie on Apple TV, and spread the word. Social media would really help as well. And then just lastly, Antonio plugged it earlier, but please go to spaceforhumanity.org, and there's a lot of different ways to plug into the organization. I would really encourage you to do that. It really has turned into a social movement, and we'd love to activate all of you to get involved. So please do that.
Great. Barbara?
I'm going to echo with Torsten and Dylan. Because I'm French, I'm going to do a screening with wine and a very good dinner at home with all my friends who don't know anything about space industry. But yeah, everything that you said.
And Mike?
Yeah, so I would just say take advantage of this proliferation of information that's out there and just soak it all up. I mean, in addition to spaceforhumanity.org, go to voyagerspace.com and axiomspace.com and interstellarspace.com and radiantaerospace.com, and there's spacex.com. There's plenty of sources out there, and things just keep, like I said, snowballing and growing and growing. So plenty of information out there, easy to get plugged in.
No, it's true. I see job postings all the time springing up everywhere from Blue Origin, from Virgin, from everyone. So it's growing, and I said it earlier, I'll say it again, the next couple of decades are going to be the most exciting time for space, and you can be a part of it. And with Space for Humanity, you could literally go to space if it's something that interests you. So with that, I just want to say thanks again to the awesome crew, the panelists as well. And I want to just say one more time to implore you, visit spaceforhumanity.org. You can learn more about the missions we have been sending to space, but also join our mission. And someone watching, even here today, could be our next citizen astronaut. You don't know. So come, join the mission, help us reach for the stars together. And thank you for being here this evening.